It was my graduation day, the day I thought would finally make my parents proud. I stood in my cap and gown, heart pounding as my dad walked up to the podium. My name was on the banner. My awards were in the program. But then, he spoke. "I want to take a moment to talk about someone very special," he said. My chest tightened. "Chris, my son, is going to change the world." Everyone clapped. No one looked at me. And in that moment I realized I wasn't invisible. I was deliberately ignored. And maybe I was never truly theirs to begin with. The backyard was strung with fairy lights, and a plastic banner that read, "Congratulations," flapped gently in the summer breeze. Paper plates, store-bought cake, a half-hearted barbecue. My graduation party felt more like a family obligation than a celebration. Still, I told myself it was enough. At least they remembered. I wore the same dress I'd picked out months ago, one I had imagined myself wearing when my parents would raise a toast, smiling with pride. When Dad cleared his throat, clinked his glass, the chatter faded. My heart fluttered. This was the moment. I straightened my posture. Mom sat beside me, silent. Chris lounged on a lawn chair with his phone. "I just want to say how proud I am," Dad began, holding his cup high. I waited for my name, my eyes brimming. "Chris, my boy," he continued, "you've got a bright future ahead. I know things weren't always easy, but you're gonna do great things." A few polite claps, a cheer from one of Chris's friends. I stared at the condensation on my drink. My name hadn't been mentioned. Not once. I turned to Mom. She was clapping too. Chris shrugged as if he was embarrassed by the attention, but I saw the flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. And me? I was just the girl who graduated summa cum laude, invisible in her own party. I stood quietly and walked into the house. In the hallway mirror, I barely recognized the girl staring back. Was this what pride looked like when it was denied? Or had I been hoping for too much all along? The night passed with small talk and background music. Not a single toast for me. Not even a whispered, "Well done." If you were me, would you have stood up and toasted yourself? 2 days later, I sat alone in the attic, flipping through old photo albums. A part of me was searching for proof that I existed in this family. Page after page, snapshots of birthdays, vacations, school events. Chris in the center, Chris blowing out candles, Chris at the science fair, even though I won that year. Then I saw it. A family photo, framed and hung in the hallway for years. I'd never really looked closely, but now I did. My image had been cut, literally. Scissors had sliced me out. Only the corner of my dress remained. I stared, breath frozen in my throat. Who does that? I confronted Mom that evening. "Why is there a picture of the whole family with me cut out?" She blinked, confused, then annoyed. "Maybe the frame was too small. Don't overthink." That's what they always said. I overthought. I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. Later, I visited Aunt May, Mom's younger sister, someone who always looked at me like I mattered. Her small apartment smelled of lavender and books. "Do you still have the old photos you took of me?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "Of course." We sat on her worn couch as she brought out a weathered shoebox. Inside, dozens of photos. Me smiling, me in costumes, me holding up a certificate in 2nd grade. "I remember that day," she said, touching one picture. "You were so proud. But your mom, she told me not to make such a big deal out of it." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Why?" She sighed. "Emily, it's not your fault. Some people see light in others and feel threatened instead of proud." I felt her words carve deep. Was that it? Was my existence inconvenient? As I left her place, she handed me an old notebook. It's your mother's. I found it in Grandma's attic years ago. Maybe it'll help you understand. Back in my room, I sat on the floor and opened it. The pages were filled with Mom's handwriting, lists, thoughts, rants. Then came entries about me and Chris. But the section about me was short, clinical, cold. Emily's too quiet, too serious. Doesn't connect like Chris does. The next page was ripped, torn out deliberately. The jagged paper edges were still fresh. I flipped through looking for more. But it ended there. Someone didn't want me to read what came next. I couldn't sleep. The sound of my dad's voice echoing his pride for Chris played on a loop in my mind. That moment, when I realized my name wasn't even worth mentioning, kept stabbing at me like a dull knife. So I did what most people my age do when their pain doesn't have a safe place to land. I opened TikTok. The screen glowed in the dark as I filmed with trembling fingers. No makeup, no filter. Just me. Today was my graduation, I whispered. And my dad took the mic. Everyone clapped when he said he was proud of my brother. My name wasn't even spoken. I was erased. On my own stage. I didn't expect anything from it. I posted it at 2 a.m. and tossed my phone under the pillow. By morning, I woke to 700 notifications. By noon, 3.4 million views. The comments rolled in like a tide I couldn't stop. Girl, this gave me chills. My parents never said I'm proud either. You're not alone. Who does this to their own kid? They called me the forgotten graduate. A stranger from Oregon offered to send me flowers. Someone in Spain painted my face, captioned it, "She should have been seen." Suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. Brands started messaging me. Little things, sure. A candle company wanted to sponsor a storytime video. A mental health nonprofit offered to collaborate. I said yes, not for the money, but because I needed to believe that my voice mattered somewhere. But in the quiet moments, after the likes stopped refreshing, I stared at my phone, waiting for a different kind of message. From Mom, from Dad. Even just a, "We saw the video." And, "Are you okay?" Anything. The screen stayed black. I filmed another video. "This is for the ones who clapped alone," I said, staring straight into the lens. "For anyone who sat at their own table while someone else got the toast. Have you ever been forgotten at your own milestone?" Comments poured in. Thousands. And yet, none from the two people I wanted to hear from. 2 days later, the silence shattered. Not in the way I hoped. My mom called me. Her voice was sharp, cold. "Why are you humiliating this family?" I told the truth. I said calmly, "You're making us look like monsters." "I didn't need to," I replied. "You did that yourselves." She hung up. A few hours later, Chris sent me a voice message. I hesitated, then played it. "You made a public spectacle for clout. You know Dad just forgot. It wasn't personal." But it was. And hearing him dismiss it like it was a minor slip, like I hadn't been dying for that moment my whole life, made my hands shake. I didn't reply. That night, while I tried to sleep, my inbox pinged. A new message from someone with no profile picture, just a username made of random numbers. "Do you really think you're their daughter?" I stared at the message, rereading it over and over. My stomach dropped. I clicked on the profile. Nothing, just the message. "You're not who you think you are." I tried to laugh it off. A troll, probably. Someone just trying to mess with me. But I couldn't shake it. Not after the photo. Not after the notebook. Not after that hollow silence I kept feeling around my name. By morning, I was at a DNA testing center. I told the technician it was for ancestry curiosity. She smiled kindly, unaware that my world might crack open soon. The following week was hell. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every night I dreamed of a woman I'd never met, whispering to me. "You're not one of them," she'd say, gently stroking my hair. "You never were." I'd wake up drenched in sweat. One afternoon I was editing a short video about emotional abuse for the non-profit when I saw the email pop into my inbox. Subject: DNA results available. Confirmed: non-match. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I whispered out loud, "Please don't let this mean what I think it means." But deep down, I already knew. I opened the email. The words on the screen weren't screaming. They weren't dramatic, just clinical, cold. The tested individual shares no biological relation with either listed parent. Conclusion: non-match. I sat still, completely still. The room seemed to inhale and hold its breath with me. I didn't cry, not yet. Not because I didn't want to, but because part of me already knew. The framed photos, the clipped words, the absence of warmth. Somewhere inside, I had always suspected that I was an outsider wearing a borrowed name. I spent the next few days tracing every document I had. Birth certificate, school records, hospital files. Most led nowhere. But there was one clue, tucked in an envelope my aunt had forgotten she had. A hospital bracelet, with a different surname. The date of birth matched mine. The name didn't. The name was Leah Monroe. I typed it into a public records database. Nothing came up at first. Then, a woman, Sharon Monroe, died 21 years ago. Cause: childbirth complications. Never married. No known partner. One child born at a small clinic in Northern California. That child was me. Sharon Monroe had no siblings, but she had a cousin, Teresa. I found her through a genealogy site. Her email address was public on a family tree forum. I wrote to her without thinking twice. My message was short, almost childish in tone. "My name is Emily. At least that's what I've been told. But I think I might be someone named Leah Monroe. Are you related to Sharon Monroe?" The reply came the next day. "Oh my God, you're real?" She sent photos of Sharon, young, vibrant, her smile almost identical to mine. There was no mistaking it. That woman was my mother. Teresa invited me to visit. I said yes without hesitation. I needed to see something, anything, that proved I wasn't some mistake switched at birth and left in the wrong life. When I arrived, she hugged me before I could speak. Her eyes filled with tears. "You have her face," she whispered. "You have her soul." For the first time in a long time, I felt the weight of being wanted. We sat at her kitchen table and she laid out everything she knew. Sharon was brilliant, graduated top of her class, got pregnant young, refused to name the father. Her family turned their backs on her. She gave birth alone at a low-budget clinic, too proud to ask for help. The clinic shut down months later. Records were lost. Rumors spread that some babies had been swapped accidentally, or worse, deliberately given to couples desperate to adopt without going through official channels. And somehow, I ended up with the Harrisons. "I don't understand why they never told me," I said. Teresa hesitated. Then she pulled out an envelope. "You might want to read this." Inside was a faded letter. It was from Sharon, to me. She'd written it before giving birth, just in case something happened. She called me Leah. She told me she hoped I'd find a home that saw me, loved me. I folded the letter slowly, holding it like something sacred. Back home, I wasn't sure what to do with the truth. I wasn't sure who to be anymore. But as I stood in front of my mirror, I whispered, "I'm not Emily Harris. I'm Leah Monroe." And for once, The girl in the mirror looked like she believed it. The next morning, Chris showed up at my door. "I know," he said. I stared at him. "Know what?" He looked down, ashamed. "I found out years ago. I saw the paperwork. I overheard them talking. Dad didn't want to keep you. Mom insisted." My stomach turned. "And you never thought to tell me?" I was scared. Everything was already tense. I didn't want to blow things up. "You mean you didn't want to lose your place in the spotlight?" Chris didn't deny it. He left without another word. Later that evening, my inbox pinged again. This time from a media company. They wanted to interview me. The subject line read, "The Forgotten Graduate, the girl who wasn't meant to be forgotten." They showed up at my workplace on a Tuesday. No warning, no call ahead. Just Mom, Dad, and Chris standing stiffly in the lobby while my co-workers tried not to stare. I met them in the conference room, heart pounding, palms cold. "You need to take it all down," Dad said before I could speak. I blinked. "What?" "The videos, the interviews, the blog, all of it," Mom added, her voice sharper than I'd heard in months. "You're ruining this family." Chris stood off to the side, arms crossed, eyes darting around like he wanted to be anywhere else. Dad leaned forward. "You don't understand what this is doing to us. To my job. My name is on the line." I stared at him. "Your name? You're worried about your name? What about mine?" He shook his head. "We gave you a life. You think you'd have had anything if we hadn't stepped in?" "You didn't step in. You took a child from a mother who never got the chance to hold her." Silence. "I don't know what that woman told you," Mom started. "She didn't need to tell me anything," I cut in. "I found out the truth on my own." Chris finally spoke. "Just don't make this worse." "Worse for who?" I asked, eyes locking onto his. "For you? For them?" There was a pause. Then Dad's voice dropped. "Your birth family paid us." My blood froze. "What?" They offered support," he muttered, looking away. "To help. But part of the deal was keeping it quiet." "You sold my identity," I whispered. "We raised you," he snapped. "Fed you, educated you, gave you a home." "You gave me a cage." Mom gasped softly. Chris flinched. I looked at them. Really looked at them. For the first time, not as a daughter, but as someone who'd been made into a secret. I saw guilt in Mom's eyes, pride in Dad's clenched jaw, and something resembling shame in Chris's slumped shoulders. There was a time I would have begged them to love me. That time had passed. "I forgive you," I said quietly. Mom softened. "You do?" "But I'm not coming back." Dad's face darkened. "We're your family." "No," I said. "You were my keepers." They left without another word. That night, the internet turned. An anonymous post accused me of exploiting trauma for fame. A thread of comments dissected everything from my tone to my tears. Brands that had once praised me began pulling back. Sponsorships vanished. "You knew this would happen," my friend Maya said as we sat on her balcony. "Yeah," I nodded. "But it still hurts." I leaned on her shoulder and stared into the dark. I didn't want to be famous. I just wanted to be seen. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The next morning, I published my first blog post. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. But it was mine. "What does it mean to be erased?" the title read. Not from records or history books, but from a dinner table, from a holiday card, from a toast that should have been yours. By noon, it had 500,000 shares. People wrote to me. Thousands, teens, adults, even parents. Stories of neglect, quiet pain, silent triumphs. One comment stood out. "Thank you for giving words to what I couldn't explain. I always thought I was the only one. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone. I came home to find a package on my doorstep. No return address, just a flash drive inside and a note. She wanted you to see this. The drive contained a single video file. I clicked play. A woman filled the screen, pale, tired, but smiling. My name is Sharon Monroe, and if you're watching this, you're my daughter. She paused, emotion trembling in her voice. I wanted to hold you, even for a second, but I didn't get that chance, so I'm saying what I would have told you if I had. You are not a mistake. You were never a burden. You are more than the silence they buried you in. The screen blurred as tears filled my eyes. The video ended and I sat there, breathless. Sharon Monroe, my mother, looked at me through the screen like she had known me all her life. Her eyes mirrored mine. Her voice trembled with a love that had never been spoken aloud, but somehow always existed. You are not forgotten, she had said. You are the gift I never got to keep. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Ugly, guttural sobs that broke open something inside me. Not from sadness, but release. I wasn't lost. I wasn't unworthy. I was loved, just not by the people I thought should have. I posted a small clip from the video, with her words overlaying a soft image of her smiling face. The internet responded like a tide. Millions watched. Millions wept with me. People I had never met messaged to say they cried too, that they wished someone had said those words to them, that they were holding their own children tighter after hearing it. For once, my pain had become something useful, something bigger than me. I started therapy a week later. At first, I told the therapist I was just working through some stuff. But session by session, I peeled back the layers of neglect, of invisibility, of never feeling enough. I confronted the moments that haunted me, the silences that hurt more than words, the years I spent chasing validation like a starving animal. Through therapy, I stopped whispering when I spoke. I stopped apologizing before sharing my opinion. I learned that the only person who needed to believe I mattered was me. I began writing late at night. Pages turned into chapters. Chapters turned into a manuscript. I called it The Girl Who Sat in Silence. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. But it was raw and honest and mine. When I shared the draft with a small online writing group, one member sent it to an editor they knew. A month later, I had a book deal. The book pre-orders exploded. I was no longer the forgotten graduate. I was Leah Monroe, author, advocate, speaker. Then came the email that changed everything. A nonprofit focused on youth mental health invited me to be their national spokesperson. They wanted my voice, my story, my truth. They said my journey was exactly what young people needed to hear. That silence could be broken. That healing was real. I accepted. At my first event, I stood in front of a room full of teenagers who looked at me like I was saying everything they'd been aching to hear. You don't have to wait for someone to choose you, I told them. You get to choose yourself. Their eyes watered. Some clapped. Some didn't move at all. But I could feel it. The resonance. The shift. After the event, I returned home to a package on my doorstep. The handwriting on the envelope stopped me cold. It was hers. Mom's. Or rather, the woman who raised me. Inside was a letter. It began simply. Leah, I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know the truth. She wrote about her struggle to connect with me, how she always felt like I didn't need her the way Chris did, how my brightness made her feel dull, how ashamed she felt that her love had become conditional, tied to fear, to guilt, to control. I was jealous, she admitted. Not of your achievements, but of your courage. You were never afraid to be yourself, and I didn't know how to love that. She ended with a single sentence that shattered me more than all the silence in the world. If I'd known how to say I was proud of you, maybe you would have stayed. I clutched the letter to my chest and sat on the floor for a long time. It didn't undo the years of pain, but it cracked something open. A door that had been closed for too long. A week later, she asked to meet. We sat on a park bench. No grand scene, no dramatic apology. Just two women, both older now, both wounded. I don't know how to be your mother, she said. You don't have to be, I replied. You can just be honest. She nodded. I hated how much you reminded me of everything I could never be. I needed you to see me, I said. That's all. She took a breath. I see you now. We didn't hug, but we didn't walk away either. That night I told Maya everything. Do you regret meeting with her? She asked. No, I said. If she had apologized sooner, maybe I wouldn't have had to grow up so fast. Maya nodded. But you did. And look who you are now. Just before bed, my phone buzzed. An email from the university. I'd received a doctoral scholarship in the UK. Attached was a forwarded confirmation for 2 plane tickets. The sender? Chris. He wrote only one line. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but maybe I can still cheer you on from the front row. The gate to my flight opened, and the voice over the intercom called for boarding. I stood still for a second longer, soaking in the sterile hum of the airport, the final pieces of a country that had both broken and built me. Behind me, Chris shifted his weight awkwardly, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, his other hand resting on the handle of my suitcase. You ready? He asked. I looked at him. This boy I once called a brother, this man who'd let me disappear in silence, but who now stood beside me, not asking for redemption, only offering presence. I think so, I said. He nodded, then reached for my hand, held it gently like he was afraid I might pull away. I'm not sorry for finding out, he said. I'm not even sorry for being scared. I'm sorry for not standing next to you when it mattered most. My throat tightened. I didn't need him to apologize again. He already had. But hearing him say it, one last time, mattered more than I expected. I know, I whispered, and I think you would now. He smiled, small and sad, then stepped back. Go change the world, Leah. I boarded the plane with a heart that no longer felt like it needed fixing, just space to grow. As we took off, I pressed my forehead against the window and watched the city shrink beneath me. The streets, the homes, the memories. I thought about all the versions of myself I'd left in that country. The silent girl, the angry girl, the girl who'd begged to be seen. I wasn't leaving her behind. I was carrying her with me. In London, everything smelled unfamiliar. Wet stone, roasted coffee, something foreign and exciting. My apartment was small but filled with light. I spent the first few weeks balancing research meetings and long walks through fog-drenched parks. I felt like a seed that had finally been given sunlight. Then came the email. Subject: TED invitation. The value of the forgotten child. They'd seen my blog, my book, my speech for the nonprofit. They wanted me to speak. Not about trauma, not about blame, but about worth. I said yes. The night before the talk, I couldn't sleep. I stood in my tiny kitchen, turning the teacup in my hands, rehearsing words I'd already memorized. But what I was really doing was revisiting her, the girl on graduation day, standing under fairy lights, waiting for a toast that never came. She didn't know it yet, but her silence was about to make noise the world couldn't ignore. When the lights dimmed on the TED stage and the red circle came into focus, I stepped forward. I once sat through my own graduation party without hearing my name, I began. I wasn't forgotten by accident. I was ignored by design. But what I didn't know then was that sometimes being silenced teaches you how to speak so loudly no one can unhear you. The room held its breath with me, and when I ended with, "If you feel invisible, I want you to know. I see you." There wasn't a single dry eye in the crowd. Afterward, I launched the project I'd been planning for months, Voice for the Silent, an initiative offering free mental health resources for emotionally neglected youth. A platform where young people could tell their stories, a space where forgotten names could become movements. The impact was immediate. Submissions from all over the world poured in, stories of silence, resilience, rebuilding. But the moment that undid me came quietly, in a school gym in Manchester. I was visiting a group of 10-year-olds, reading from my book, answering shy questions about what it felt like to grow up unseen. A small girl approached after the session, her hands clutching the straps of her backpack. "My name's Emily," she said, "and I want to be like you." I knelt down, looked into her eyes. The same kind of eyes I once had. The kind that searched every room for permission to shine. "You already are," I told her. "And you don't need anyone else's spotlight. You make your own." That night, I recorded one last video for the project's anniversary. No filters, no music, just my voice. "If you're watching this," I said, placing a hand over my heart, "you're not invisible. I see you." I smiled, and somewhere, across the world, someone did too.